I don't know what happened. I did everything right. I brought my brand new tank home. I set it up. I tested the water. Everything was perfect. So I went ahead and put my fish in there. And for some reason, a week later, they died. We hear this almost daily in the shop, folks. This is something that is very common, and it has to do with the nitrogen cycle. And today, that's what we're going to talk about on this episode of Tank Talk. Hey folks, it's John with KGTropicals.com. It's Sunday, September 21st, 2014. Welcome to this edition of Tank Talk. We've made it to episode 3 in our video series, Fish Keeping 101. And so far in this series, we've talked about decisions that need to be made leading up to entering this hobby. We've talked about gathering up all of the equipment necessary to start successfully in this hobby. And today we're going to talk about one of the most important aspects of this whole deal, and that is the nitrogen cycle. We're going to talk about what it is, how it happens, and how you can jumpstart the whole process. So let's get right into it. Okay, before we get into this, I wanted to remind you real quick, because you may not have seen my last video. Head over to KGTropicals.com and look on the homepage for that picture right there. Click on that picture and it's going to take you to our brand new forum. We just set it up. We've got a whole bunch of members already. We're having a blast, totally free. Go over there, sign up, you just put your email in and create a password and you're in. It's a blast. We've already had a couple of big name YouTubers sign up for the forum. We're having a great time. Definitely check that out and bookmark that page. Come by and visit with us every single day. All right, so what is the aquarium cycle? What is the nitrogen cycle? Why is it so important? It's real simple to explain, folks. Leftover food and fish waste decompose in your aquarium and they cause ammonia. Ammonia is very toxic for your fish. It's almost like being in a room filling up with smoke. So ammonia can suffocate your fish, and it is the number one fish killer. This is why you see in everything they say overfeeding is the biggest fish killer in the hobby. It's because the food that's left over decomposes and causes ammonia. The cycle is where your aquarium builds up denitrifying bacteria. That's a really hard word to say. And that bacteria breaks down ammonia, converting it to nitrite, and then also builds up to convert that nitrite into nitrate, which makes the water safe for the fish. The cycle is the buildup of that bacteria. When you start a brand new aquarium, everything's brand new. There is no bacteria in the tank. So there's nothing to combat that fish waste and that leftover food when it decomposes. So it just contaminates the water and wipes out all of your fish. The best analogy that I like to use is the room filling up with smoke. Imagine yourself in a room where it's a tight, sealed room and it's starting to slowly fill up with smoke. What's going to happen? You're going to start to kind of cough. You're going to feel tight in the chest. You're going to start coughing. And as more smoke is introduced into the room, robbing the room of oxygen, you're going to start to have trouble breathing. So you're going to be coughing, and at the same time, you can't breathe, and eventually you're going to suffocate. This is what ammonia does in your aquarium. It's the same type scenario. If you've ever had it where your fish have been at the top of the tank, kind of gasping for air at the top of the tank, that's because they're trying to get relief from the smoke that's building up in the aquarium. We don't want this to happen. It's a huge fish killer. We want to prevent this, and we prevent it by letting the cycle take its course, letting this bacteria build up so that it can combat that ammonia, convert it, and make it safe. That's the cycle. So let's talk about what happens in the cycle and what the whole process is. Okay, so what happens during the cycle? It's not that complicated, folks. I'm going to keep it as simple as possible. When your tank is new, there is no beneficial bacteria in the tank. So your ammonia is going to spike because there's nothing in there to make it stop. So whether you have fish in the tank or not, ammonia is eventually going to spike. Things are breaking down. Things are happening in your aquarium that are going to cause ammonia, and there's nothing in there to break it down. So what happens is you need to wait until the beneficial bacteria builds to a point where it can combat that ammonia and convert it down to nitrite. So the first thing that you're going to see when you're cycling your aquarium is you're going to notice an ammonia spike. If you have fish in the tank, it can happen within a week or so. If you don't have any fish in the tank, it could take quite a while because there's nothing in there to produce that ammonia. So it might take a little longer. But ammonia is going to be the first thing that's going to spike. And then the bacteria is going to build up to a level where it can combat that ammonia and bring it back down. And you're going to think, everything's wonderful, it's done. No, it's not. Because now all of a sudden that ammonia has been converted to nitrite. And nitrite is going to spike. Nitrite might not be as lethal as ammonia is, but it's still deadly for your fish, and it's still not safe to have your fish in there while the ammonia or while the nitrite is high. So again, it's more of a waiting game. You're waiting for the bacteria to continue to build to a point where it's strong enough to break down that nitrite and convert it to nitrate. Now, when ammonia spikes and it gets broken down, converted to nitrite, and then nitrite gets broken down, converted to nitrate, the cycle is complete. However, it's not over with. Your job is not done because nitrate is not broken down by beneficial bacteria. We have to do that. We have to do it a couple of different ways. We're going to talk about that later on. So again, what happens in this cycle? You're going to start up your brand new tank. Ammonia is going to spike. If you have fish in it, it's probably going to be pretty quick. If you don't have fish in it, it's going to take a while. Ammonia is going to spike. Bacteria is going to build, breaking it down, converting it to nitrite. Nitrite's going to spike because the bacteria is not strong enough to combat it. Bacteria is going to grow. It's going to break that nitrite down, convert it to nitrate, and then we're done. Then our job begins. So let's talk about ways that you can get through this cycle without killing fish, and then we're going to get into ways of promoting the process and making the process go faster. So there's really two different ways to cycle an aquarium, with fish in the tank or without fish in the tank. Doing it with the fish in method is, in my opinion, the easiest way to do it because the fish will go in there, you will feed them, they will produce waste, and that will make everything happen a whole lot faster. And there's different things out there, there's different methods and different chemicals that you can use to keep your fish safe throughout this whole process. So I believe that the fish in cycle is better. I think it's faster, it's easier. But if you don't want to risk the fish and you don't want to waste any money on fish because they may die through it if you're not on your game, then you might want to go with a fish-less cycle. No fish in the tank, just get it running and let nature take its course. It's not a bad way of doing it. So if you have fish in the tank, you're going to put them in there, you're going to notice pretty quickly that the ammonia is going to spike. Now, when this happens, there's a couple of things that you can do. One, do some water changes, but I want to caution you. The beneficial bacteria in your aquarium does not grow in the water, folks. This is a big misconception that a lot of new fish keepers have. It doesn't grow in the water. So it grows on the surfaces, on the glass, in the gravel, on the decorations, in your filter. This is where the beneficial bacteria grows, on surfaces. So when you do your water changes to help protect your fish, make sure you're only removing water. And you can lightly vacuum your gravel to get that leftover food and that waste out. But don't go cleaning everything. Don't do it. You're going to kill your fish if you do that. So do your water changes, and that's going to put fresh water back in the tank, and that's going to make it safe for the fish. There's also a couple of products out there. Prime would be the first one that I would talk about, that actually detoxifies ammonia. It's still going to show in your test, but it's not going to be toxic for the fish. So that's a great way of combating the cycle while you have fish in the tank. And then there's also products like Ammolock from API, not a sponsor of the show, but Ammolock is another way. Ammolock doesn't make it go away. It doesn't detoxify it. What it does is it stops it in its tracks, stops it from spiking to elevated levels that are going to kill your fish. So between those chemicals and water changes, you can get through the cycle and not kill any fish, but you definitely need to be on your game. You need to be testing your water every single day, making sure that if the ammonia has spiked, you need to react by doing water changes. So the next step is really no different. We're just going to be waiting for the nitrite to spike because, again, like I said earlier, the bacteria has built up to a point where it can break down that ammonia, but now it's converted it to nitrite. And so once it's nitrite, again, you're going to need to do the same procedure to keep things moving. If you have no fish in the tank, just leave it alone and let nature take its course. But if you have fish in there, you need to do what we talked about earlier. Use chemicals, use water changes to get through that part of the process and then the beneficial bacteria will build to a point where it breaks that nitrite down and converts it to nitrate. So now we've rounded third and we're heading home. The ammonia is gone, nitrites gone, and now we're just left with nitrates. Does that mean that we're still waiting for the bacteria to continue to build up to where it can break down that nitrate? No. This is where we step in, folks. The bacteria doesn't break down nitrates, so we have to do that. We have to do it one of two ways: through chemicals and products that you can put in your filter or into your tank, or even things like live plants can help to break down nitrates, or we can do water changes, or both. That would be absolutely the most efficient way of running an aquarium. We do water changes, and that is what's going to keep nitrates at an acceptable level to keep your fish happy and healthy. So it's part nature, it's part us. We both have to be involved in this process to keep the aquarium healthy. When your tank is brand new, you have to let this process take place. If you don't, you're going to kill a ton of fish. So let's talk about ways that you can promote this and make it happen a little faster, and how to get through the process. So to make this process happen, there's one of two ways you can do it. Like I said earlier, a fish in or a fish less cycle. The procedure is really no different, except if you're doing a fish less cycle, meaning there's no fish in there at all, you're not going to need to do quite as many water changes and all of that, if any at all, because you're wanting nature to take its course. If you have fish in there, you're going to need to do these things to keep your fish alive. So how do we make this process happen? How do we make it happen more efficiently? There's a lot of ways out there. Technology has come a long way to make the process much smoother and much easier. It doesn't mean that you can start up your tank brand new and immediately throw fish in there like some of the products say, but it does make the process much, much easier. So when you're starting your brand new tank, I'm not going to go through the whole process again because that would be foolish, but when you're starting your brand new tank, you need to make your decision whether you're going to go fish in or fish less. If you're going to go fish in, I would recommend doing a couple of things to speed this process up and introduce bacteria into the tank rather than waiting for nature to take care of it herself. So how do you do that? There's really two different ways. One is put it in from an existing aquarium, or two, go the store-bought method. They have beneficial bacteria in a bottle now. When I covered this a year ago, I actually had a bottle to show you, but in my house, I don't. But there are products out there that you can buy that quick start the process of cycling the aquarium. Just about every single brand makes a product like this. So whatever your local pet store covers, I'm sure is going to be fine. I don't know that one is really better than the other. So you buy one of these bottles, you follow the directions on the bottle, and you go with that. It helps to introduce live bacteria into the aquarium. Another very easy way to do it is to actually take things from another aquarium, an existing aquarium, and introduce those into your tank. Things like filter cartridges, the dirtier the better. Things like gravel from an existing aquarium. Because folks, I cannot stress enough, water does not have bacteria in it. So you need to take something from the aquarium, like the gravel, like the filter cartridges. That's what you need to bring over and put into your brand new aquarium. The filters and the gravel, this is where your bacteria grows the most. So if you take these products out of your friend's tank or your local fish store, maybe they have some old cartridges they can give you, whatever, that's going to take them from one tank and throw them into another one where they can continue to reproduce, they can continue to grow and boost this process heavily. I've had so many people come into my shop and say, I immediately cycled my tank because I just emptied out my old one and put all the water in the new one. That starts the cycle, right? No, I cannot stress this enough, folks. If you take water from an existing aquarium and put it into your new aquarium, it's going to accomplish nothing. There is no bacteria in that water. It grows on surfaces. Just remember that. If you do that, you're wasting your time. So many people have said, I'm moving, and so I'm going to take all of my water from my existing tank and I'm going to put it all in buckets and jugs and take it to the new house. This way I can cycle my... No, it doesn't work that way. So it's the surfaces. If you're going to do something like that, take your gravel in the aquarium water and put it into a bucket or something. Put the lid on it, and that is how you're going to transport your beneficial bacteria, not in the water. So between having live bacteria in a bottle and grabbing old things from old nasty aquariums, that's going to be your most efficient way to cycle the tank, whether there's fish in it or not. If you choose to do a fish in cycle, like I said, you need to be on your game and you need to spend a little bit more money because you absolutely must go out and buy a master test kit. This is critical, folks, because you need to be able to test for ammonia, test for nitrites, test to see where your nitrate levels are. These are all critical things to get you through the process. So spend the money. You're already buying a tank. You're buying all of this stuff. Go out and get a master test kit. If all you can afford is the dipsticks, that's fine too. Just have something that you can monitor what's happening in your tank while the cycle is happening. So get your test kit. If you have a buddy that has an aquarium, get whatever you can that's nasty from his aquarium, his sponges, his whatever, and get that water as brown and nasty as you can. I know it sounds crazy, but that's a great way to boost the production of beneficial bacteria in your tank. Get one of those bottles of bacteria in a bottle. That'll help that too, and that'll speed this process up whether you have fish in there or not. But if the fish are in there, make sure you're on your game. So I hope that helps. I'm trying to cover it in a short little window here. I hope it helps to make you understand what the cycle is all about. If you're overwhelmed and it was too much information in too short of a time, why don't you head over to our podcast? It's going to upload on Tuesday, and I'm going to go into great depths talking about the cycling process. I'm going to talk about nightmare stories that we've heard in the store. I'm going to talk about nightmare stories that we have encountered ourselves. We're going to go into much greater detail when it comes to the cycling process. So if you're still unclear, check it out. Go to KGTropicals.com and check out the podcast that's going to upload on Tuesday and every Tuesday for that matter. While you're on the internet, which you obviously are right now, why don't you also head over and support our sponsors for us? Sponsors like UniversalRocks.com, folks. If you enter Tank Talk in the promo box at checkout, they're going to give you a 15% discount. And then there's also Dustin, I lose track of what side I'm on. There's Dustin from Dustin's Fish Tanks. You know who he is. If you haven't seen him, just search it on YouTube. The guy's a maniac. He has his own business selling live aquarium plants. If you're going to do a planted tank, you should absolutely check out his channel because he's going to tell you everything you need to know about a planted tank. But also, he sells his plants on his website, dustinsfishtanks.com. And again, if you enter Tank Talk at checkout, he's going to give you a 20% discount. Support our sponsors, folks. It means a lot to them. It means a lot to me because that's what keeps me going with doing these things. So thank you so much to the sponsors. Thank you so much for watching this, and we'll see you next week.